Hello and welcome to sovereignrpg. I am Sovereign, and today we've got a lot of information given to us by the full director of the DUNE Awakening game, all about the end game and how it's not really hit the mark for a lot of players and how some players are a little bit worried about it. So today we're going to be going through this whole thing and we're going to be talking about individual parts. I'll give you my opinions on those certain parts. So first up, he just wanted to talk about how the endgame kind of fell a little bit short of what the players wanted, but they also wanted to give a little bit of an understanding of what they were aiming for when they were looking to do that. So he started off with, so let me start by stating this unequivocally. We want PvE players to be able to play the endgame and have access to the content of the endgame. Our goal is not to force PvE players to interact with the PvP system that they may have no interest in. So speaking around complex systems, today's video is brought to you and supported by the insightful minds at boot.dev. After my genuinely positive experience delving into the fundamentals of programming with them, I wanted to share with you all once more. What boot.dev really nails is making back-end web development accessible and, dare I say, engaging. We're talking about core skills, Python, Go, and even SQL, for managing those crucial databases that hold everything from our character profiles to our hard-earned loot. Now, as a survivor on Arrakis, you need to be strategic, always thinking several steps ahead in order to get away. And that's exactly how boot.dev approaches learning. They emphasize building real projects, getting your hands dirty with code from the get-go. It's not just theory, it's practical application, but let's be honest, it's the only way to truly master a new skill, whether it's infiltrating enemy lines or building a functional base. One feature I found particularly helpful was their AI assistant Boots. This isn't your typical give you the answer bot. Boots uses a Socratic method, asking questions that really make you think through the problem. It's like having your own personal intelligence analyst guiding you to the solutions, which as an agent, I can definitely appreciate. Plus, they've gamified the learning process with XP levels and even a leaderboard. A bit of healthy competition never hurt anyone, and for those who might be hesitant, boot.dev offers a 30-day no questions asked refund policy, so there's really no risk in checking it out. They also have a fantastic Discord community full of helpful folks if you ever get stuck. So if you're intrigued by the hidden workings of the digital world, if you want to learn the skills to build your own online presence, or even just understanding the technology behind the games we love, I genuinely recommend checking out boot.dev. The link is waiting for you in the description below, and don't forget to use my code sovereignrpg. Now let's get back to the desert run world of Arrakis. He continues on by saying, we still believe in the core concept of the deep desert, an endlessly renewing location that resets every week and creates an activity loop for great rewards. The tension of heading out there, head on a swivel, eyes peeled for foes as you enter the most dangerous part of the most dangerous planet in the universe. Our wish was that players would embrace this loop, forming guilds to work together to overcome bleakness of the deep desert. But as Stephen King says, wish in one hand, shit in the other, see which one fills up first. One of my hands is overflowing right now and sadly not with wishes. Now this is kind of the age-old argument of PvE versus PvP players, especially in MMOs. If you focus on too many PvE players, you lose the PvP players. If you focus too much on the PvP players, you lose the PvE players. And the balancing of the two systems is a really difficult thing to do. I don't think any game has fully, especially in survival games like this, has fully grasp the entirety of making a PvE game and a PvP game with equal sides on both sides. Now, the PvP players that have a hell of a lot more risk are going to need a hell of a lot more reward. But currently, as it stands, the PvP players already get the highest level of reward. The PvE players get the tier 5 set of rewards. Now, if they made a deep desert extended for the PvE players and allow them to get those endgame tier rewards with the tier 6 stuff, what rewards are they going to be giving the PvP players that make it worth going out and doing the PvP and not killing off the PvP in general? It's a really hard thing to actually work and get done. Now, unless they add more tiers onto it, but then the PvE players are going to be upset they can't get to that endgame tier in the PvE either. Will there be added stats to the PvP gear that you get out of there that allows you to take less damage, do more damage in PvP, which is something that could be used to make the PvP gear more useful and more reason for you to go out and do the PvP, because if everyone just can get their gear in PvE, no one's going to be out doing PvP unless it's the guys that are just camping the spots, and they're going to end up quitting the game, which then allows the PvE players to go into the PvP zones more, and it kind of defeats the point. It's a really double-edged sword trying to work with both things at the same time, and for me, it kind of like makes it really difficult for developers. Now, he goes on to say the reality is that players are reporting being cut out of the endgame due to the extremely competitive nature of the deep desert, which is the game's philosophy. It's the building blocks of what this game is. So I understand that there's people that want to go into the deep desert and get everything that you can in a PvE set and not be forced into PvP. but it is kind of the way that the game was designed to be. And while I'm not the best PvP player, I love the PvP action that comes out of Dune Awakening. It really does tick a lot of boxes for me, except for not having enough ground stuff to go on and blah, blah, blah. But then he did mention, starting soon, some areas of the Deep Desert will now be flagged as partial warfare PvE. Some areas where players will be able to explore testing stations and harvest T6 resources without the threat of conflict they may not want. It's important to note that the top tier of the game is balanced around guilds and groups, so people will still find it grindy if they play solo. Now, this isn't such a big deal when it comes to having small amounts of the resources. You're already getting small amounts of spice in Hagar Basin, which is perfectly fine. You can fly out there, pick it up, get 500 each time you pick up a node, and you can progress with the spice melange slowly. Now, there wasn't really a way to progress with the titanium and the stravidium. Those two were in the Deep Desert. Now, if there are going to be smaller amounts in the PvE zones, it will be significantly more grindy, which is perfectly fine. Go out in the Deep Desert, you get a hell of a lot more stuff. Now, the current time for resources replenishing is quite significantly high in the Deep Desert. We went in after someone had done the titanium run on their carrier and their buggy with our carrier and buggy, and it took a significant amount of time for those resource nodes to start to respawn. Unless they're lowering the amount time it takes to respawn resources, the PvE zones are going to be swamped with people and they're never going to get the resources anyway. It's going to be a fight for resources without any way of being able to stop people from doing it, which is kind of a really bad way of looking at it. Now, it depends on how many areas they're making the PvE zones and how much of the resources they're putting out there. If they're putting enough for all the people that want to PvE in the Deep Desert, then you might as well just farm the Deep Desert for those resources, which is kind of going to be a really difficult thing for them to get through. So now the Landsred control points, shipwrecks, and the largest spice fields within the region of the Deep Desert will remain War of the Assassins PvP flagged. So the control points you won't be able to get from the Landsred, the shipwrecks, and the largest spice fields. So that sounds to me like they're actually going to just have testing stations in the PvE areas. Does it sound to you like they're going to have more testing stations in the PvP? We only have 2 currently in the PvP zones. So when we were flying about, there's always constant action at those points. But if you can go into PvE and get the blueprints for the T6 stuff and only worry about going out, and the only thing you have to worry about is going out and fighting for spice sand, which currently there's so many spice flows about that it really, you can find a spice flow without anyone on it. You can get out there, get it done, and get back. Spice melange is not hard to get in a group setting. As a solo player, it is definitely much harder to get. It takes a hell of a lot longer time to do it. And you can run out there and use some of the higher tier compacting tools. And if you have a couple of hours a day, you can get to the point of having T6 gear. Within a week or so, you can get a full set of T6 gear with only a couple of hours a day with the current makeup of it. It's going to make it a lot easier to get that gear, and you're going to be able to replenish that stuff. I don't have that much of an issue with that. I just think there needs to be way more. They need to add way more rewards to the PvP so it's worth us going to do it, and rather than just staying in the PvE zones. The deepest parts of the Deep Desert will remain as they currently are, high reward, high risk areas. But for me, it's not really high reward. It's high risk, but it's not high reward because you're now going to be able to get it in the PvE zones, which again, I understand how difficult it is for PvE players to be able to go out and just do their PvE thing. And I think it will be good, but they need to add higher, much better rewards for going out into the PvP zones. Because if it's the same as the PvE, what is the point? He did talk about the beauty of the Deep Desert design with weekly resets and renewals that we can reiterate and experiment with different layouts and setups to really help us tune it. As we make changes, we will send out surveys to help us capture your thoughts. Surveys never work. Surveys never work. The only people that really speak out properly in surveys, you'll have a lot of good, but you'll have a shit ton of bad where people don't really understand mechanics. They don't understand those things. And that causes a lot of problems with surveys. I mean, they can play their own game. I don't understand why they can't play their own game and see what the problems are. They can go out on normal servers, play with everyone else, and see what the problems currently are. They need more land-based PvP. They need bigger rocky areas so we can go in there with our buggies, with rockets. We can go on the floor. We can fight in PvP. Currently, just running around, flying around on Ornithopters is insane to me. The meta is flying around on Ornithopters. There is a bit later on which adds a little bit of a change to it, but I don't know how much it's going to actually change with it. But we'll see as we're going on, as we can talk about with these changes right here. So the PvP itself has plenty of issues and needs to be addressed. We're taking steps in a direction with our first changes to Scout Ornithopters. So Scout Ornithopters with rocket launchers attached will have their speed and maneuverability reduced. And now, unless that's lower than an assault, there's literally no point. There has to be reduced significantly for it to be a thing and for it to even make a difference. Now, rockets fired from Scout Ornithopters have increased heat generation. That's going to be a really good change. That's going to be, because I really would like some of the land-based PvP stuff, and hopefully this stuff, it won't maybe not change it enough because there isn't enough land to do it on, but running around in assault Ornithopters, you'll be able to get away with your scouts, etc. There's going to be ways of getting away. So thrusters will provide a max speed bonus regardless of wings, ensuring the thruster-equipped scouts will be the fastest vehicles in the game. A new Tier 5 infantry rocket launcher will be added to help improve the dynamic of vehicle and ground combat. There is no ground combat. That's the problem. There is no ground combat. You haven't got many places in which you can actually have a significant amount of ground combat, somewhere for the PvP players to actually go to. Yes, you can go to testing stations. Yes, you can go to all these places, but open ground, just foot fighting, it's not what the game has. There's plenty of other ways of doing it. We need to use the buggies. We need to use the rockets. We need to use all that kind of. They really need to look into these. They're going to be adding changes to respawn timers, vehicle storage tools, hand scanners. There may be a timer added to vehicle storage tools. Oh, if you're in combat, you may not be able to store your vehicle, which is bloody annoying when they land and they just store stuff. I mean, I've done it as well. I'm not going to say I haven't, but it is kind of a really shitty way of doing it. If you're going out for PvP, you want to lose shit. You can't not lose shit. It is really important to lose shit. Now, you always have the option to retreat in good order with whatever you've managed to claim so far. If you're smart and vigilant, you never have to fight if you don't want to. That is true. You can quite easily get away, and there is ways to do it. If you run, you'll have to call a halt to whatever task you are pursuing, but that should always be a choice. PvP should happen when both parties decide what they want to fight over a location. Now, having the faster Ornithopters with the storage and then being able to get away from anyone who wants to PvP easily, again, is a shitty PvP change. Again, I think that with the change, it's really hard to balance both aspects of the thing. I think there is, and there do needs to be ways for people to get away, but there also needs to be ways for PvP players to have a way of being able to chase people down. Now, this could be a good change and it could be a bad change. Being able to get away all the time will lower the amount of PvP that happens, but the PvE players will be able to get away. And the PvP players, if they want to fight each other, then they can. Having to kill people who don't want to play in, like, who don't want to PvP is always fun for PvP players, but it ruins the game for PvE players. So it's definitely something that they really need to look at, and those changes may be good. I'm not sure yet. We'll have to see. Now, they do talk about the fact that they're going to be adding some of the changes to make it better for land, air, and on foot combat. Now, these things it's going to take some time, I would say. There's definitely some work that needs to be done. I think we need to be a little bit patient when it comes to this because there's going to be some hit and misses, especially in this kind of PvE, PvP fight. They don't want Thopters to be the most dominant force in the battle, which currently it massively is. We can have changes to the Landsred, which will allow for more dynamic and more usable content that you can use to gather stuff, kill stuff, and all that kind of thing, because when people like the bigger guilds, like the guild that we have, we can stockpile a lot of resources and we can just give in those resources and bang, it's done. No one else can get those resources and we can cut off an entire Landsred section. Maybe it has a really good T6 blueprint, like the plasma cannon I use on my heavy gunner build that I'll be releasing tomorrow. But hopefully there'll be much better ways for our PvE players to actually be involved in the action instead of us just running around and just taking everything. But then he goes on to say the Landsred is an umbrella for all in-game activities. What form do those in-game activities take? More dungeons with bosses that drop in-game loot, more contracts that require specific tasks to be undertaken, more specialized delivery tasks that include components that cannot be stockpiled. If we ever had raids to the game, there will be a task on the Landsred to complete those raids. Here's a framework that holds the endgame activities in place. Now, raids might be really interesting, but raids are going to be really difficult considering they only have parties of 4 unless they add battle groups, and battle groups will be able to use in PvP, which is why they're trying to not add more than a 4-party group. So you can't see who's in your group at all times, even though you can just paint your gear all the same color. They can't add more than 4 to stop the zerging being as easy as it is in other games. So the inability to hand in items after the square is completed and rapidly at which the squares are turned in. The stockpiles is currently rewarded, but it is not the intention for the system. We'll make some changes to address it as best they can. And Landsred rewards are supposed to reflect the end game tiers of progression. This includes the vendors, which can be unlocked for an entire faction through participation. This is the intention, but once again, let me acknowledge that this isn't exactly in the right place. The Landsred will be updated to provide micro awards for small and solo group players. So there may be different tiers. If you're doing it as the larger stuff, you'll get better rewards. There's going to be a solo, a small group, and a large group tier system and the amount of rewards you get. I think that's going to be a much better change. That's going to be really good. And that's what they talked about today. So we had a lot of things going on. There's a lot of changes coming. Let me know what you think about the PvE to PvP changes. Do you think this is going to help the game grow? Do you think it's going to cause it a problem? Let me know down below. I want to thank you all for watching. Remember to like and sub for all your Survivor Gaming goodness. And remember to use my code sovereignrpg for boot.dev. It's definitely worth checking out if you're looking to learn how to get into the games industry. Fly safe and avoid local chat scams.